you are doing everything right. Good job, good income, house in a decent neighborhood, kids in activities, parents you check in on every week. You are responsible. You show up. And somehow, at the end of every single month, the number in your account does not reflect any of that. That is not a discipline problem. That is not a spending problem. That is a structural problem. And the structure was built before you got here. Here is the uncomfortable truth nobody in your office is saying out loud. The generation sitting between aging parents and growing children. The generation carrying the mortgage, the daycare bill, the assisted living conversation, and the career plateau all at the same time is also the generation the traditional financial system was least designed to help. It is not your fault, but it is absolutely your problem to solve, and that is exactly what we are doing today. Let me name the trap precisely because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You are in your late 30s or early 40s. Your income is real, somewhere between $80,000 and $160,000 a year. By almost any historical measure, you are doing well, and yet the math at the end of the month feels like a lie. Here is why. The average American family with children aged 5 to 12 spends between $15,000 and $35,000 a year on childcare and education costs alone. That number has increased 41% since 2010. At the same time, nearly 30% of Americans aged 35 to 44 are already providing some form of financial or logistical support to an aging parent. The average out-of-pocket cost for that support runs between $7,000 and $14,000 annually. Add a 30-year mortgage on a median-priced American home. Add the car payments that come with suburban life. Add the health insurance gap if you are self-employed or between jobs. Add the completely invisible cost of keeping up the appearance of stability for your kids, your colleagues, and your own sense of self-worth. You are not overspending on luxuries. You are funding 3 separate households on 1 or 2 incomes. And the financial advice you keep finding online was written for a 24-year-old with no dependents and maximum flexibility. That advice does not fit your life, which is exactly why we need a different framework. Here is the metric that changes everything. And I am giving it to you now. Not at the end, because it is too important to bury. The number is not your income. It is not your savings rate. It is your asset to consumption ratio. Right now, most Americans in your bracket are consuming at 90 to 95% of everything they earn. Housing, childcare, transportation, food, insurance, all consumption. None of it builds. All of it evaporates. Assets are the only things that work while you sleep. A brokerage account, a maxed 401k compounding at market rate, a Roth IRA growing tax-free for the next 20 years, an S&P 500 index fund that requires nothing from you after the initial decision. The goal is not to spend less on your life. The goal is to redirect a calculated percentage of your income into things that generate returns without your direct labor. Let me show you the math, because the math is genuinely motivating. The 2026 401 K-key contribution limit is $23,500. If you are over 50, you get an additional $7,700 in catch-up contributions. That is $31,200 you can move into a tax-advantaged account this year alone. If your employer matches even 3%, that is free money sitting on the table every single pay period you do not maximize. Now here is where it compounds. $23,500 invested annually at a 7% average return. The historical average of the S&P 500 over any rolling 30-year period becomes approximately $1.1 million in 20 years. Without touching it, without timing the market, without a single stock pick. That is not a get-rich scheme, that is arithmetic. But the 401k alone is not enough for your bracket. Layer in a Roth IRA. The 2026 contribution limit is $7,000 per person. $7,000 for you, $7,000 for a spouse. That is $14,000 growing completely tax-free. When you pull it in retirement, not a single dollar goes to the IRS. If your income puts you above the Roth eligibility threshold, 150,000 single or 236,000 married, you use the Backdoor Roth conversion. Fully legal, the IRS knows you are doing it. A fee-only fiduciary can set it up in one afternoon. Now stack a health savings account on top. If you're on a high deductible health plan, the 2026 HSA limit is $4,300 for individuals and $8,500 for families. The HSA is the only triple tax advantage account that exists in the American system. Tax deductible going in, tax-free growth, tax-free withdrawal for medical expenses. After 65, it functions like a traditional IRA for any expense at all. 401k, Roth IRA, HSA, 3 accounts, 3 separate tax advantages working simultaneously. Here is the critical reframe. You do not need to find extra money to do this. You need to redirect money that is currently moving toward consumption and route it toward ownership instead. The family that cuts one subscription service, brown bags lunch twice a week, and automates a slightly higher 401k contribution on the first of the year, that family does not feel richer in month 1. They feel exactly the same. But in year 15, the gap between that family and their identical income neighbor is measured in hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ownership compounds, consumption does not. That is the entire game. Now, let me connect this to what it actually buys you, because the point was never the number. At $400,000 in invested assets, a 7% return generates $28,000 a year passively. That is enough to cover most family emergency scenarios without touching principal. The car repair, the parent's medical bill, the unexpected school expense, gone. Not stressful, just handled. At $800,000, that same 7% throws off $56,000 annually. You are now looking at a genuine second income that requires nothing from you. No commute, no performance review, no corporate restructuring. At one point, $2 million. You are approaching what the research calls the first real threshold of work optional thinking. Not retirement necessarily, but the moment you can look at a job you hate and walk, or look at a parent who needs more support and give it, or look at a kid's school play on a Tuesday afternoon and actually be there. That is what this is about. Not the yacht, not the status. The Tuesday afternoon. The families in your bracket who are quietly building real security are not doing anything complicated. They are not picking individual stocks. They are not timing the market. They are automating contributions into boring index funds, letting compound interest do the work they are too busy to do manually, and protecting what they build with the right insurance and estate structure. They started not when everything was perfect. They started when the math made sense, and the math makes sense right now, even in this economy, even with the mortgage, even with the childcare bill sitting on the counter. I want to ask you something directly, and I want you to actually think about it before you scroll. Of these 3 pressures, which one is sitting heaviest on you right now? The aging parent conversation you keep putting off, the childcare cost that is eating the raise you worked 2 years to get, or the career ceiling that makes you wonder if the income ever actually catches up to the life you are supposed to be building. Drop it in the comments. 1 word if that is all you have. Parent, childcare, career, because the next videos I am building on this channel are going directly at each one of those answers, and I want to build them for the specific pressure you are actually living under. If you are in the middle of this, if you are the person holding everything together for everyone else while quietly wondering when someone builds a plan for you, this channel is that plan. If you want to build a strategy that gives you time back with your family, subscribe to follow along. No hype, no shortcuts, just the math and the moves that actually work for the life you are already living. I will see you in the next one.